Well, hello. As most of you know, I have been home recently and uploading videos that I made while I was at work. And I believe I've uploaded almost all of them. There might be one or two, and I may not get to it because it looks like I'll have to be leaving soon again. And I haven't made any videos while I've been back. But this is something I really wanted to talk about. Now, uh, recently, both the House and the Senate passed basically the bill that says, and forgive me for not knowing the numbers, that basically anyone can be put in prison forever without any charges being even filed based simply on suspicion. And obviously, what can be said about this, I'm sure all of us are well aware how ridiculous and evil this is, but I thought I'd offer a little bit of personal insight. The Senate bill, most people are aware, was introduced by Senator John McCain and Senator Carl Levin. Now, McCain is obviously very well known on the national stage, and Levin is not. And uh, I'm in the position to have actually met Levin a couple times and to give some idea of the type of man he is. Uh, when I say I've met him, he would not know who I am. I've gone to a number of events that he spoke at, some of them which were very small, and he struck me as the type of politician who uh, is smarter than he lets on when you confront him. I asked him actually about the Federal Reserve, and he said he didn't know what it was, and I do not believe that for a second. That to me is a bold-faced lie. For those of you who don't know, he's a Democrat. He's a liberal Democrat. There is no degree of social welfare that he doesn't support, yet he is also an unabashed hawk. He's a Zionist. For those who don't know, he is Jewish. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a warmonger, but there's a high correlation for people in the U.S. House. That's not really anti-Semitic because there's a high correlation for everybody in the U.S. House being a warmonger. Uh, Now, beyond that, a little personal story here. There's a fellow from my high school, wasn't really in my class, he was a few years below me, and definitely somebody who I knew who he was, he knew who I was. And this guy was an anarcho-syndicalist, I believe he still is, and quite the political rabble-rouser. And last year, he and a friend of his went to a Carl Levin event in our hometown. Levin came to speak to the local Democrats. And this guy basically interrupted the speech and began reading a statement, which, although I have not read it, I believe the gist of it was that the wars are bad and he's a warmonger. And at the end of the speech, his associate threw a pie in Carl Levin's face. Okay, so what did Carl Levin do? Well, he went to the prosecutor and he had them both charged, and this man, this kid really, who did nothing except read a statement, got a month in federal prison. Now, there is no way the prosecutor would have done anything unless Carl Levin had gone and demanded that he press charges, which he clearly did. And this is the guy who's passing a bill that says anybody can be thrown in prison forever without trial. And you hear all this, anyone who defends this bill, of which there are a few people outside of government who will, and I mean, people will maybe dismiss it. Just look at the character of the guy who's passing it. Carl Levin is a spineless subhuman. I've seen actually videos of him in documentaries about lobbying organizations. This is a guy who cannot function in normal society. He is at odds. He doesn't know how to go out and, I don't know, buy groceries or hang out with people or go to the bar. He gives political speeches, and the only times he socializes is among the power elite, the political elite. And actually, the video that I saw, the documentary about lobbyists, they were showing some big party that a lobbying firm was putting on, and they interviewed him because he was showing up to go, and he had this real giddy glee look on his face because this is probably the only chance he ever gets to let loose. Is that something where they're probably serving cocaine and caviar with Ukrainian hookers or whatever. I mean, I don't know if they literally did that at this event. It wouldn't surprise me at all. And this is the kind of thing he can't socialize outside of that setting. He's a bloodthirsty, warmongering killer, and he is spiteful and vindictive to the point where somebody who does nothing. Now, in this event, the woman who threw a pie in his face, technically, yes, that's assault and battery of the most mild type, and we know there's a double standard here, because if you were at a party with your buddies one night and they threw a pie in your face and you called 911, they would A, laugh and tell you not to bother them, or B, charge you with a crime for wasting their time. But you do that to Carl Levin, or any other congressman for that matter, or senator, and you're liable to go to prison forever now, or at least a month. And the other guy, you could probably look it up, his name is Max Kantar. Probably shouldn't have said that, but Max got a month in prison for reading a statement denouncing the war. And it was funny, too, because when it happened, since Levin is a Democrat, it was assumed in the press that it must have been Tea Party people, and there was a lot of liberals saying, look how violent the Tea Party. Obviously not. They're anarcho-syndicalists. They're very left-wing. And I used to debate Max a lot. I remember a couple of years ago, I wrote him almost a 20-page letter. Okay, I don't agree with him about all that, but to give a speech, to interrupt a political propaganda tour, basically, and to point out something that I would agree with, and that he's a warmonger, that the wars are bad, that's fine, and that's not a crime at all. I mean, the person who threw a pie in his face, I guess, maybe. But to give just speech, they also charged him with stalking or something because he's shown up at other Levin events. So I guess anyone who shows up at any kind of political events repeatedly, if you happen to see the same politician at these, watch out. So Levin is a scumbag. Obviously, we all knew that McCain is a crazy person. I actually think McCain may be insane. I actually don't think George W. Bush was insane. He was extremely evil. I don't think in a sinister way, by the way. I think he sincerely thought that in some way his cowboy diplomacy was good. But there were times when he actually restrained himself from causing a nuclear holocaust, like when Dick Cheney wanted us to go to war with Russia during during the Georgian invasion of Russia. And George Bush said, hey, no, that would probably not be a good idea. So I'm glad he did that. McCain is like Cheney, though. He just froths at the mouth to fight and send other people to die. Potentially, who knows, in the millions. It depends on who he decides to pick a fight with next. And he passes a bill with Carl Levin. I guess it's bipartisan because Levin is a liberal Democrat, he'll be said. I think he's one of the most powerful Democrats in the Senate. Don't quote me on that, but he's been in there quite a while. Probably not the longest, but I mean, my understanding is that he's far, far more powerful than Michigan's other senator, who is also very liberal and horrible, but not actually a warmonger, and that's Debbie Stabenow. Now, it's kind of an interesting juxtaposition because the congressman here in Michigan, or at least one of them, the one close to me, is Justin Amash, who is basically the next best thing to Ron Paul. Like, literally, he's a very, very good congressman. Ron Paul endorsed him, and I've made a couple videos referencing him. And of course, he is against this legislation and has said it's blatantly unconstitutional. He's actually worried about it. Like, you can tell by his posts. He was even on Freedom Watch about it, that this is a really... he said it was one of the worst things in our lifetime, and I mean, I guess since we've had the Patriot Act and the Military Commissions Act and God knows what other FISA bills, I guess it might only rank as one of the worst, but I know my feeling is it's probably the worst. So anyway, I didn't want to talk too much about the detail of the bills because I'm pretty sure most of my subscribers know. I just wanted to offer some personal, quasi-personal insight into this Carl Levin person, this disgusting sociopath who, I mean, I totally disagree with these anarcho-syndicalists on almost everything, and I don't have much love lost. But what happened to them was absolutely atrocious and fascist. I mean, literally fascist. And this is the guy who now, I mean, I'm worried that they're going to send him back in prison forever. And he had a rough time in prison, by the way. It wasn't, basically all the bad things you can imagine happened to him for nothing. Literally for nothing. For free speech, for First Amendment rights, for non-aggression. There's no legal theory anyone can imagine other than the one that state officials are God would put this guy in the wrong. And Carl Levin made sure he went to prison for a long time, and they threw the book at him. And my understanding, they're doing even more. He alleges that he's being tailed by the FBI and somebody else. I don't know if that's literally true, but you know, maybe he's a little paranoid. I don't know. But who wouldn't be after something like that? And you know what? It worked too, because this guy was a political activist. He was going to things. He was writing stuff in the paper. He was, I mean, not just letters to the editor. This guy was an activist. And you know what? He's not now. He won't do anything. He's scared to death to even go out of his house. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but he will not. He is not politically active. That's the point of this kind of stuff. And although it's hard to say, and maybe it's easy for me in a position where I'm not likely to maybe suffer for it, the worst thing we can do is to shut up about it. Because if we allow ourselves to be intimidated, then that is only encouraging our would-be oppressors to go a lot farther. If we resist, and I don't necessarily mean that in physical force, although that's, you know, an eventuality in some cases, but if we shut up and don't do anything, then we're just asking to be abused. And if we don't shut up, then, well, maybe we have some hope. So, all right, that's it.